IT and security is a full-time job. These bad actors, they're doing their research. They're going after businesses. Over half of the breaches last year were from small businesses. It only takes one person to bring down the house. It's just one email away.
Welcome to the Path to Owning It podcast by Provide, hosted by me, Corey Brown, a marketing leader at Provide with over a decade in supporting small businesses. Whether you're an aspiring or established founder, here you'll find tools and advice to start building your legacy and take your business to new heights. To help you achieve your entrepreneurial ambitions, each month, we'll tap into our unparalleled network of experts who will join us on our quest to provide the answers to your most pressing questions. Like what you hear? Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen. Today, we're hearing from Jim Bennett, CTO at Legend Networking. Jim has been with Legend Networking for 14 years, and they specialize in everything from turnkey network infrastructure, network security, data backup and recovery, and more. We'll be discussing the world of cybersecurity and data privacy, offering tips, best practices, and strategies to keep your business safe. Jim, welcome to the show. We really appreciate you being here with us today.
Sir, my pleasure. It's always good to do something like this for the community.
Absolutely. You know, Jim, we have a lot to talk about. And in today's world, cybersecurity, data privacy, they're arguably more important than ever. Can you share with us how the digital landscape has changed within the past few years in your experience?
I would say that, internet bandwidth is exploding. With this, we've become more mobile, more cloud with our data. Another big thing would be like IoT, the Internet of Things. We have phones, we have wearables, smart devices, things like that. Your car, your Tesla that's parked and connected to your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I mean, it's transmitting data. We also are in launch phases of AI, artificial intelligence. It's potentially to be a good thing. It can also be used to cause some damage. And then remote management and monitoring tools that are out there, those have the ability to be infected and then they get deployed out across multiple devices and enterprises. And so I think that as we delve into more and more, we have to be more and more diligent.
Yeah. And can you talk specifically about how the changes that you've mentioned, how that really impacts the importance of cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely. What we store and how we store it has been kind of chaotic. We have a lot of cloud data. Anybody who owns an iPhone has iCloud, and all their stuff is sitting on a server somewhere in some data warehouse. So the biggest thing I think in the impact would be people who have weak passwords, no secondary authentication methods. It could lead to brute force attacks and to their accounts, their devices, their data storage areas. It's just been taken on to a new level.
So as someone who has an iPhone and has for, the last 12 years, should I be frightened that my stuff is out there on the cloud somewhere? Or should I be safe knowing that I feel like I have, strong passwords and two-factor identification and those sort of things?
I think you're pretty secure, but there's no full safeguards. I mean, we see a lot of celebrities out there that get hit with their iCloud being dumped onto the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to really protect yourself in that respect. So Apple does a pretty good job with making sure that it's really hard to log in. So yeah, just, randomize your passwords, change your passwords up every now and then.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel a lot better. Thank you. Besides the storage on iCloud and that sort of thing, what are some of the other top cyber threats that businesses specifically are facing today?
Well, my opinion and a lot of other people's opinion is that phishing attacks are the number one. With this method, the end user is the one who lets it in. So it means less work. There's not some code delivery, some special hacking of a backdoor, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the potential to get caught for the perpetrator is a whole lot lower because it's a hit and miss. If they get you, they get you.
Yeah.
And then the stuff that they put on there is usually untraceable. Others would be like social engineering. Anybody remember LimeWire or torrents? Hey, I can get free music or I can get free movies. That's something that in our brain I will do because somebody made it easy to do. And you don't know if that MP3 that you just pulled down has been loaded with some malware code in there.
Wow. Yeah. I think phishing attacks are probably things that are listeners are somewhat familiar with. Can you give us an example of like a common phishing attack and what that might look like?
So basically, these domain providers have opened up anything you want to put after the dot. Okay. So if your business dot puppies, if you want to put something after that, they can do that. Well, the keyboard has multiple languages and one of them is Cyrillic, and there's a lot of characters on there that look the same.
Hmm.
So you can get an email from FedEx.com, only the O is a Cyrillic O.
Hmm.
And at that point, you're looking at this email that you just received that's telling you your package is going to be late and that you need to click here. And so you just got phished.
Hmm.
There's so many different types of phish. If it's an email internal from one user to another that has been spoofed, you've got the CEO of the company sending the accountant an email to wire some amount of money to this account for a new venture that they're working on. At that point, you just sent $100,000 to somebody who just stole it.
Yeah.
So there's different types of phishing, and there's some pretty good courses out there. One of the free ones I like is the one from the Department of Defense that gives you a certificate at the end.
Yeah. I know working for a bank, we have quarterly trainings and a lot of them are focused on this sort of thing. So looking for things like misspellings or grammar mistakes and that sort of thing or other things people should look out for. Can you talk a little bit about how does it look different for small businesses compared to much larger organizations?
Basically, the main difference between the two would have to be compliance. With smaller businesses, the main focus is on the business, what they do, what they provide. So there's little resources, both financial and time, to ensure the proper protections are put in place, kept up to date, training their staff, and routine checks to ensure that they're in compliance with both security and data governance. Larger enterprises, they will employ staff that's solely dedicated to keeping things secure and locked up. I think what needs to be said, though, is it only takes one person to bring down the house. It's just one email away.
So what can smaller businesses do to, I guess, protect themselves if they can't afford a full-time staff to look over this one area of the business?
I would say hire an IT company. A lot of small businesses that we've dealt with in the past, it's been a brother-in-law or, my nephew is really good with computers. And at that point, he can probably make sure you can access QuickBooks with no problem. But can you really lock it down so nobody's looking at your QuickBooks that you don't want?
Right. Yeah.
And so I would say get an IT company that is reputable. And at that point, you probably will be just fine. And at that point, I don't think that a consumer, an end user, should be the one doing it unless they had the skills and certifications to process it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Last question of this segment. Are there any myths or common misconceptions that you can debunk that owners might have about securing their business?
Yeah, a common misconception would be that some owners may not know their limits, like we were just talking about. IT and security is a full-time job. Some think that they can learn a few things, think they're good with an iPhone and setting up their home Wi-Fi, so they might not need a professional security officer on their payroll. But while regular consumers are an all right target, like you hear a lot from like banks and things like that, consumers getting hit, credit card fraud, things like that. Yeah, that's a big business for somebody. But if I can get an email address that, stays lit, that people just keep pumping me information, that's worth more than 100 credit cards. And so with that, these bad actors, they're doing their research. They're going after businesses with their website name after the @ sign in their email. So some myths would be that hackers don't target small and medium-sized businesses. But over half of the breaches last year were from small businesses.
Wow.
Because it's an easy mark.
And you mentioned a few resources, but what are some of your trusted resources that small business owners can utilize to help them with this?
Well, that's easy. Small businesses, you're in the merchant area.
Yeah.
Small businesses include, small medical offices or other health entities. So the US government has come up with laws regulating data and its protection. HIPAA, DSS, PCI, high tech, to name a few. And these compliance regulations will tell you what is needed to protect consumers regarding their patient health information or identifiable information. So I think if you maintain that compliance, That's a good point because then it means you have the correct components in place, to keep the data safe, keep your network safe. Other resources, there's a lot out there that businesses like mine will employ. SIEM, which is a system information and event management tool, will tell us if there's, rogue devices on the network or, if there's any network traffic that's out of the norm, and then allow us to investigate and see what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jim. Thank you. We've discussed an overview of today's cybersecurity landscape and the impact it has on small businesses. When we return, though, I'd like to dive into some effective strategies for owners to use to keep their businesses safe. More with Jim Bennett right after this. Ready to take your practice to the next level? Meet the Provide Card, the credit card built specifically for healthcare practice owners. Available in addition to your Provide practice loan, with the Provide Card, you'll be transported to a world of new opportunities for your practice, where you can access the spending power you need to build your legacy. You can earn rewards on all purchases, all the time, with no rotating categories and no point expiration. At Provide, we're creating the future of personalized banking for healthcare practice owners. To learn how to apply for the card that makes your purchases go the extra mile, contact your Provide representative or visit getprovide.com/providecard for more information, including rewards terms and conditions. I'm Corey Brown, and this is Provide's The Path to Owning It podcast. We're back with Jim Bennett, CTO at Legend Networking, to discuss strategies and best practices for keeping your business secure from cyber attacks. Jim, on the front half, we kind of had an overview of cybersecurity and data privacy, but I'm curious, what can business owners do, in your opinion, to evaluate their current cybersecurity risks?
Well, the first step would probably be hire a risk analysis specialist. Sometimes you can get people that just do a one-off just to kind of give you a footprint of where you're at. And then at that point, you can then start to work through it. They'll help provide you with where you're currently at, help you develop a plan, and then, walk you through executing the plan. I would say that the first step would be to ensure that your passwords are secure, complex, and that you do employ a multi-factor authentication. So that's where I would start, because you'll get a tremendous amount of knowledge and information out of what comes out of the reports.
Yeah. Just curious, more so from a personal standpoint, I guess, and professionally, what makes a strong password? And is there an easy way for one to remember such a strong password, especially one that changes often? Do you have any tips there?
Yeah. So the strong password, we want a password that we can remember because we're going to end up typing it a few times.
Right.
So what I would do is probably do like a phrase.
Okay.
But in that phrase, I would do a minimum of 10 characters. 12 would probably be best. And then I would throw in an uppercase, a number, and a symbol in there as well.
So let's test out some. Can you give us some common phrases that are not your current passwords? Because we don't get you in trouble.
I won't give you what I use.
Yeah, but are there any common ones or ones that you think would fit the bill here?
Yeah. So one that probably just comes to mind quick would be, if I was doing a phrase password, I would do the dog runs fast.
Okay.
It meets the length requirement. If you change the E in the to a 3,
okay,
the O in dog to a 0, and then the A in fast to a 4.
An @ symbol.
Or an @ symbol. Yeah. At would probably be good. That would then meet your requirement. If you did a 4, you could probably put an exclamation at the end or a $sign. And it's something easy for you to remember. It's quick on the keyboard. And then just remember that in 30 to 60 days, you're going to get a request to change and update your password.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that advice. That's great. You mentioned two-factor identification. That's something we're seeing more and more of for business owners. Is there one that you would recommend them using for their business?
Yeah. So it all depends on a platform that they use for their email.
Okay.
So you'll start with your email. If you use Google, probably Google Authenticator. If you're using Microsoft, it will be Microsoft Authenticator. And at that point, I know Google Authenticator will allow you to use pretty much any platform as far as 2FA. Microsoft has started to jump on this bandwagon, so they do have some cross integrations. The next thing is, you can get a text. I know Apple sends a code to your phone when you're trying to log in from somewhere else that has never logged in before. There's lots of places, but Google and Microsoft are probably the two that I would select.
Okay. And we talked about this a little bit before, but how crucial is employee training and education in preventing attacks? I mean, especially for small businesses where, usually the owner is doing a million different things all at once and puts a lot of trust in the few staff that they might have.
Actually, I've been waiting for this question. The human firewall is the first line of defense, and it's also sometimes the weakest link.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough the importance of cyber threat education. This cast we're doing is a good start. It's bringing it out into the open where people can get an idea of what's going on. So since phishing is the number one threat, its sole target being the end user. So if the end user is educated properly, then the threat has been mitigated. So there are some free tools out there. Google is a good source for finding good education platforms. I had mentioned earlier the Department of Defense is one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 15-minute course. You can send the link to your employees. They can run through it. You can make it a requirement that they print out the little certificate at the end and give it to you. You can even make a little bulletin board for people that have done it. It'll give you a score so you can see who's better at it than the others. Did you click on that link?
Yeah. Yeah.
And other things would be, web security as far as training people. I've seen content filtering on a lot of businesses. We do have some offices that we employ content filters. So it's like a high school or a middle school.
Yeah.
So when you go to this website, it gives you a little, oops, you can't go there. But see, sometimes that will diminish the productivity. What if that's actually a site that I need to go to?
Yeah.
And so if you have to train your employees to, hey, look, you can't go shopping while you're sitting at the front counter waiting for the next customer to come in. So I would just train them in that respect.
Do you know of any tools out there that maybe after they've completed their initial education, is there anything out there that would maybe simulate a phishing attack as like a test throughout the year?
Yeah, they call it a phishing campaign. KnowBe4 is a platform that we've used in the past to develop a phishing campaign to, randomly send it out to the users in the organization. It can be costly.
Okay.
So it's not easy to set up. It takes some people with some email backend acumen and skill to allow, because, most of your spam filters and things like that are on email are designed to catch the things that you're throwing at your employees. So you have to turn some stuff off in order to let it happen.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So there are things that are out there that you can use. Yes.
Okay. So let's say the worst has happened. Let's say my business is experiencing a cybersecurity attack. What is the first thing that I should do?
So if you get breached, the first thing that you're going to want to do is ensure that your backups are not corrupted. If there's any on-premise data storage there, you're going to want to make sure you can put it back in one piece. So check your backups, disconnect from the internet. So small business, usually a single office, they have a provider's modem coming in, just, unplug power from the modem.
Okay.
Until you can figure things out. That'll stop the flow. Next will be to forensically go through the breach and determine the extent of the liability caused. And then after that, a plan will have to be developed to restore production and any legal aspects that need to be performed, especially like in the health industry.
Sure.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, you've mentioned some of these tools or outsourcing IT, and obviously there's a cost associated to that, right? But I would have to imagine that the cost of that as opposed to the cost of mitigating a cyber attack is way less. Am I right?
I've always said it. That's your house payment. That's your car payment. That's your grocery bill that you pay is in the data that you have. I mean, that's your whole business. And once that happens, there goes the house, there goes the car. What's that worth to you? Is, your livelihood is your business. And if it gets taken down for 2 weeks while you're trying to figure out what happened and what needs to be done, it's tough.
Yeah. How common is this sort of attack that we've been kind of speaking of? I mean, you were saying that small business owners feel like, oh, it'll never happen to me. But what is the likelihood? Any idea that it actually could.
I don't want to freak anybody out, but you may have already been a target. You may have already been hit. These variants, they want to take data and they don't want to let you know that they're doing it. So they just sit in the background on a computer in the office and just run. And if you're not securing yourself, you could be already a victim. So with that being said, good scans, good event management, just keeping track of your data. How often it happens, like a big thing will happen, you'll come in and nothing works. That's the ransomware part. But sometimes you can come in and they're just siphoning off credit card information every swipe and you won't even know it.
You had mentioned like a cybersecurity specialist before, like a risk analyst. Is there a cadence at which you would recommend they have someone look at that throughout the year to make sure that these like secret siphoning of data or information is not happening?
I would at least, at minimum, quarterly do a deep dive.
Yeah.
And make sure that the house is clean. After that, it's a day-to-day. You might want to generate an antivirus report that gets sent to your email, at the end of each business day. So that way you can know that you're not getting siphoned, basically.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned a lot of great points for our listeners to think about today. Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
I don't want to say that everybody's out to get you, but that's not really far from the truth. I would say that if common sense prevails and we start to think a little bit more maliciously when it comes to the use of the internet, I think that we will become more aware of the schemes of the bad actors out there and then start to develop plans. A police officer comes to mind. The police officer a lot of times has to have the mind of a criminal so that way he can then apprehend said criminal. So if you know the schemes, then you can then become a smarter person in the safety of your network.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if our listeners would like to get in touch with Legend Networking to discuss their own cybersecurity questions, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Our 800 number is always available. It's 800-794-1588, or they can go to legendnt.com. That's legendnt.com.
Fantastic. Well, Jim, thank you for this insightful conversation today. This is a really important topic, and we just really appreciate the tips and advice you shared for business owners. So thank you.
Sure thing.
Thanks for joining us. The path to owning a business is a nuanced journey. We hope you discovered something in this episode that eases your path to success. If so, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a topic you'd like discussed in a future episode? Drop us a line in the comments section or send us a message on social media. If you're ready to take control of your future and start building your legacy, be sure to visit getprovide.com. You can view our resources page for more helpful tools, learn how our all-in-one financial and banking products can help you on your path to business ownership, and pre-qualify for financing in under 2 minutes with no impact on your credit score. The path to owning it is brought to you by the team at Provide, with support from Slide 9 Agency. And it's produced by PodCamp Media, branded podcast production for businesses. PodCampMedia.com. Producer Dusty Weiss, editor Matt Covarrubias. For Provide, I'm Corey Brown. Thanks for making us part of your journey.
Provide is a division of Fifth Third Bank, National Association. All opinions expressed by the participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Provide, its affiliates, or Fifth Third Bank. The participants' opinions are based on information they consider reliable, but neither Provide, its affiliates, nor Fifth Third Bank warrant its completeness or accuracy and should not be relied upon as such. This content is for informational purposes and does not constitute the rendering of legal, accounting, tax, or investment advice or other professional services by Provide or any of its affiliates. Please consult with appropriate professionals related to your individual circumstances. All lending is subject to review and approval.